Oh, good morning. Hey, Saturday morning, early up. Woohoo! Here we go. So, you guys are chess freaks like me, aren't you? That's a good thing. I don't mind having chess freaks for friends, right? Hey, I want to welcome all the new viewers. I'm getting new subscribers. I guess word's getting out that I've come back with a vengeance and I'm not going away anymore, which is a good thing. Got my Marvel Comics t-shirt on. I'm going to try to get some new t-shirts. Marvel Comics, I'm telling you, they're the heroes. Woohoo! Oh, okay. Wow, what a week. What a week in chess. I've had a little bit better week this week. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. I'm seeing some improvement, sort of. I mean, isn't that the way it goes? It goes like a snail's pace. So, welcome to all my new viewers. I appreciate it. Welcome you ladies, especially. I'm not trying to be sexist. I'm just saying chess deserves to be played by everybody, regardless of whether you're male, female, transgender. Who cares? It doesn't matter. But ladies seem to have an especial difficult time in chess because of our egos, and that's all good. Let's lay all that aside. We're here to learn chess and have some fun. I have been going through some of the now. Last week, I went through the gioco piano traps, and I didn't even get halfway through them. And man, there's some sensational stuff. I love the Italian game. Interesting statistic, though. Before I get started here, hey, welcome. Looks like Chris Gordon. Good to see you. Happy Saturday, BYP. Nothing better than curling up with some hot tea to watch chess. I'm even going to put that comment up. Woohoo! Chris Gordon, good to see you. I hope you enjoy this. The Italian game, it's very interesting. I was looking it up in my Bobby Fischer chess tournament book that I've got, and in his 60 memorable games and some of the other books that I've got. He did not play the gioco piano a whole lot. Now that's interesting. This is an eternal opening. This will never go away. It just won't. It can't. So that's the way it works. It's excellent for all of us, and here's why. Let me jump onto, hold on, make sure I'm in the right spot. Okay. Gioco piano. The nice thing about looking through so many traps with the gioco piano is because we really do get to learn. And this particular text keeps with the main line more or less. Now, the classic telltale sign of a gioco piano, of course, is the bishop c4. That way you know you're in the gioco. If the bishop goes to b5, you're in what they call the Spanish, the Ruy Lopez. I think most of you already know that, right? I mean, I'm not telling you anything new. You're going to put pressure on the knight so that it, yeah. Anyway, this is the one we're looking at today, and one of the classic response. And there are a lot of ways to respond besides bopping the bishop out, but the theme is more or less, essentially, looks like the quiet game, Chris. Absolutely, the quiet game. The theme is this bishop's going to hit the weakest pawn on black. And if you get a gioco piano in reverse as black, you're going to be hitting the f2 pawn. But the emphasis is on the f7 pawn because only the king protects that pawn. And that's why it's considered the weakest in the opening lineup. So the gioco piano says, well, why not? Let's go ahead and put pressure on that. And so many tactics are based on that thing, right? So the class, but you can open up like this right now. You don't have to bop as black. You don't have to bop your bishop out there to c5 at all. There's many different options you can play. You can, this is considered what they would say less strong. I don't know if that's the right wording, but more passive, not nearly as oomph up front. And this is seriously very, very, very seldom played because you don't want to block in your own pawn, right? I mean, that's a central pawn. And white is looking to bump the C and then bump the D to hit the center. So, I mean, this is just typical gioco piano. So putting your bishop here just isn't the best way to do this gioco piano, because you need this D pawn in this center somewhere helping you fight. The bishop blockades. So that's why you rarely, and I mean never, see that in tournaments. Don't ever play that as black. The bishop to c5 is just honestly the standard way to do it. And, you know, it's just one of those things. I got to take my glasses off so I can read. My eyes haven't focused yet. It's just one of the basic standard. And here we see the response to bringing the bishop is just like I said. He pushes this bishop pawn, the c3, in order to push the d4. You do want to hit the bishop early when black brings it out. That's just how it is. Looks like more and more people are coming in. Good to, hey, Eddie Guerrera. Good to, hey, username. Oh, okay, good. We're glad you can be here for 10 minutes. That's awesome. So bring the pawn. I'm going to go for a bit longer, Juicer. So after you have dinner, come back and check out. I'll probably still be here blabbing away. So pawn b3, of course, is going to prepare the d4 immediately. And for the sake of the particular traps, this is one of the lines, probably the most often used. I mean, you have a lot of options. Most of these traps are going to be looking at it when they bring out the knight. But, I mean, you can go to here right now, right? And that's usually how they'll set it up, which, interestingly, leaves this fabulous hole, d5, right? So, but that's still a basic opening. And what that does, of course, is it opens up the bishop, the light squared bishop on black. So, there, in most openings, there are specific moves in a specific order to get the maximum effect. Yeah, I mean, don't we all want that? I do. I need it. So we'll see the knight coming out in quite a few of these, and when it doesn't, it will show you. There's a few of these, I think, where they don't develop that knight early, and it. Because, and it affects the black game, because, of course, they're going to hit this pawn. And why not? Because white has declared automatically with this bishop pawn that he's not going to go to there as often as he's going to go ahead and hit the direct center. So this is a free pawn once an exchange is made with this knight. That's why they bring that knight out. And I say free tentatively, you know, that's just one of the moves. He gets a pawn, right? So anyway, knight to, hey, Ice Cream, good to see you. Hey, Lambo Doors Do Teth. Oh, thank you. With the idea of having a strong center. That's fantastic, yes. Yeah, that is literally emphasized by everybody everywhere. So wonderful. That's good. Welcome. I'm doing lives. Hey, let me know in the chat what you think of this. I'm just brainstorming real quick while I'm in the middle of explaining a good trap, which is probably not the best way to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. I got thinking this morning, there's so many around the world that are in different weird time zones. What would you think? Do you think it would be helpful if I did an early Saturday morning live like I am this morning for a few hours, and then do a real late Saturday night live, like Saturday night, 10 o'clock my time, mountain time in the United States? I don't know who will be asleep, who's awake or whatever, but I'm thinking that might give some of the other audience members who don't normally get to see the lives to be able to see them. Anyway, I am going to be doing a live tomorrow morning, and this is President's Day weekend. I'm going to be doing a live on Monday morning, President's Day for the United States as well. So I'm getting paid to do this weekend. I get a paid weekend. So woohoo! Fun stuff. That's the advantage of working for the financial industry. Bishop b4, and now pawn bishop 3, yes. And then the knight to bishop 3. So here we go. So, and again, you've set this up as white, so you're going to pursue it with that pawn queen 4 push. This is just standard Italian game stuff, and it's standard that the pawn is going to take the pawn. So here we go. We're going to see typical standard moves. You have an option, just so it's understood. You can retake with the knight, but don't. Black has that square covered twice. Yeah. So there's no reason to exchange one of your developed pieces for one of his this early in the game. Go ahead and just re-exchange with the pawn. That is precisely why you bumped that pawn, right? You're preparing your future game with certain pawn moves or certain piece moves. Go ahead and fulfill that plan. Just carry through with it and retake with the pawn, right? Because nobody's going to take a pawn to lose a piece, right? Unless they want a pawn and a piece for a piece. I say nobody. Maybe I should watch how I say nobody. Due on Saturday. Well, that might be work. Oh, well, thanks, Count Rookula. I love your handle, Count Rookula Rich. Hey, AJ, welcome. Good to see you, my friend. Well, all right, I might do that. A late Saturday night live from 10 to midnight or something like that. What the heck? So this is going to be typical. He re-exchanges, he takes with the pawn, he retakes with the pawn, not the knight, and bishop. Now, and this is important, and I said this last week too, but this is good to repeat and reemphasize rather than do a passive move. And passive means you're not, it's too weak. The retreating move to here would be ridiculous. You're not ever going to do that. The retreating move back to here is also just not very good. You put the bishop out there. Now you're just wasting your time putting it back when it gets attacked. You're putting your bishop out here with the full and don't ever come back to here. Criminy, no, you want a castle. That makes sense. You're putting your bishop out here with the full knowledge that white is going to bump the pawn on the bishop, c3, and push d4. That's going to hit that bishop. As black, you are developing with that sure knowledge. If white knows what he's doing, that is what will happen. You want to go forward. Check to the king. That is a must. You have to do it that way. Otherwise, you're wasting tempo. And what that means is you've already made a move. To undo the move gives your opponent a free move. And it might be that one free move, seriously, that wins the game. I mean, if it gives him a free queen move out to here or out to here, a free developing move with a knight or a castle or whatever, that could make the whole difference in the game. That's why tempo is so important. You want to make sure you're playing active but good moves and not just simply repeating willy-nilly back and forth like so many do with their knights. Oh, I like it here. Well, I think I'll try this. Oh, whoops, I got attacked. Well, no, in that case, I'm going to go back. That's not the kind of chess we want to play. It's too weak. It's too passive, what they would say as passive. So the bishop does take check, and you can block. You can do this a couple of ways, with the knight or with the bishop. The majority of cases we see it with the knight, and yes, I understand he has the chance to take the knight, and when you return, it's going to leave in the Italian the way the Italian is set up, because you've already had a pawn exchange. Your C file is a partially opened file. Great place for a rook if you get into the middle game heavy, right? But if he takes and you take, or no, not your C file, your B file. This will be the B file that'll be open, because this pawn's going to retake the bishop. So, I mean, that doesn't hurt to put a rook on that, because you've got queenside pressure, right? So it's really not that big of a deal to block with the knight, is what I'm trying to say in such a wonderful roundabout way. Yeah. And now, when the bishop comes forward and you block it and blah, 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 you stop the check. This is when black takes the king pawn. You, as white, are expecting this move in the Italian just as surely as black is expecting the push on d4 against the bishop so that he can move it forward. This is just standard stuff. This knight is going to take that pawn, realistically. And why not? Because now the white knight's pinned. And that's the power of the pin. Power of the pin. So, and there's ways to undo the pin. I mean, you still have the ability to castle. Knight's no longer pinned. Now, if and when you do castle, don't be surprised if the bishop takes the knight, right? Or if you bop the bishop up, developing the bishop, which is also entirely playable, that too will block the pin, because this is an absolute pin against the king. You can't retake that black knight with your knight. And the key, the tactic, is when you pin a piece, then attack it. So that makes great sense that the knight's going to take that pawn, because that piece is pinned. Now you can win a piece. Now it's not winning a piece. You're more or less going to exchange a piece, but still, that's the idea behind that. So always expect that knight to come in. There are some variations. Everybody has different variations. If people can't stand the fact that their central knight or their central pawn is going to be taken, they would open, rather than pushing the c3 pawn and then bumping up with the d4, they would have put this, and there are entirely valid variations where they'll put the pawn on d3 to protect that pawn, and that changes the whole nature of the battle for the center. And I do believe I've got a game or two here to show you that effect. We'll see. So anyway, boy, that's a long-winded explanation, but see, this is why we study openings. This is how we get to the nitty-gritty and hey, Eddie Guerrera. Yes, yeah, good point, Eddie. Yeah, this can get complex pretty quick, just so you understand. And he does undo the pin, white. Again, an entirely valid option. You have numerous. Don't put the queen up here. I'm just saying, unless you're a real beginner, and I'm going to save you a lot of heartache. Do not block that pin with the queen thinking, ha, I can retake it. No, because the knight's just going to take your queen, right? So you don't develop your queen before you get your pieces developed anyway. He's still got a bishop to bop out here somewhere. Realistically, it's going to come to here, the g5, the bishop. Right? Just like he pulled his bishop out here, white will probably, for the most part, do the same thing. Either to g5 or f4, right? Because it's developing the piece. But in this case, for this particular interesting game, white castle. So that means, now that he's undone the pin, you have to keep this in mind. And I'm saying this out loud for me, not just you guys. Now your knight is being seriously threatened to be taken. Just so you understand it. Don't be surprised if your knight is now taken, is what I'm telling you. That's a very important thing. Don't be, oh, I needed that knight. I mean, yeah, you need every piece, but your opponent's not going to sit back and do nothing while you do all the work and attack and setting up your position the best way you can and all that. So just recognize that once you castle, or if you were to use the option of the bishop to d2, don't be surprised if he exchanged that knight. Because now that the pin is over, there's no point in the bishop making yet another move just to back up. You see how that works? It's unlikely that your opponent's going to just back up the bishop just to keep pressure on the knight. Technically speaking, there's no pressure on the knight because the pin is gone. Does that make sense? So, castling does, oh, goodness sake. Oh, thank you, Brian J. You're awesome, brother. Welcome. Thank you. That's very kind of you. I appreciate the support. So the castling has happened. So he does have two pieces now, right? Hitting the knight. That was the whole point of that knight move. So now he takes the knight with the knight. So this will be an exchange of the knights after all, right? Don't be surprised when that happens. And now pawn takes the knight. So as a general rule, you want to attempt, in most circumstances, and again, it depends on the board position, don't just give up your bishop pair willy-nilly, because bishops just grow in strength toward the end of the game, right? So don't just give up the bishop pair. This is why he took it with the knight rather than the bishop, because he keeps the bishop pair. And granted, he's not very well developed. That's all good and well. Don't worry about that at this point. So now, this is such a cool view. This is why I wanted to show you this game. His response could be this, and this is what this player did. Okay, remember what I said about passive moves, passivity, going backwards like that. Here's the deal. That sucks. This is the losing move as far as strategy say, or as far as what he's doing is he's diminishing the power of his bishop by the retreat that far back to that area. And you say, well, wait, BYP, he is going back to the center. I get that. This move is what gives white the incentive to do a full attack. And here's why. There is no pawn here. This pawn was exchanged, right? The B pawn earlier in the center. Yeah. So the bishop's perfectly safe here, and he still influences right down into the white position. That is vastly better. That would basically be able to help prevent the attack that we're about to see. Okay, thanks, Juicer. Good to see you. He's saying for me, starting between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. on my time zone would be fine. So I'll do some afternoon Saturday or afternoon Sunday live sessions too. Maybe I can do that. I can do a real late Saturday night tonight, and then do a Sunday afternoon tomorrow. We'll see. I love having Username here because he is so excellent at chess, and he sees so much, and he helps add to the information that we like. This is really truly how he should have done it, without question. This retreat really is a good signal for us. Now, when you see your opponent, look at what it does. Here he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares that he can influence directly into white's camp, right? And then this is his long diagonal. When he comes back to here, he loses the influence entirely, as opposed to this in white's camp. That's what I mean by a passive retreat. And we're going to see that right now. Oh, John Harrison. Hi, Carrie. Can you say hello to Alex Harrison? Absolutely. Alex Harrison, hi. Your dad says hi, and so do I. Hey, that was poetic, right? Nice, cool, right. The reason he can... Okay, a question was asked. It's a good question. I'm going to show you. He can take the pawn. That's true. However, he's got two pieces. He's already moved this bishop once, twice, and now 3 times, and it's going to give black or white a much better chance to attack. For instance, the queen here and check to the king already. So what it is it's a waste of a move. And I get it. It gets a pawn. That's true. It does get a pawn, and it does hit the rook. But of course, do the intermezzo check first, and then you can move the rook, perhaps. And that'll give you pressure on this, which means that the bishop won't be able to develop even though you bump the central pawn. So yes, he can take the pawn, and there are games where he does take the pawn. For this particular game, this is showing us, and actually, you know, maybe taking the pawn would have even been a better move than bumping all the way back here. So that's a good point. Thanks for asking the question. That's a good one. It was Lambodors.tech. Yes. Oh, sure, John. Absolutely. We're all friends and family here as far as I'm concerned. You betcha. And I appreciate your son watching the videos too. Hopefully he'll enjoy them and learn along with the rest of us. This is what it's all about right here. So now let's get on to the point of this weakening move. This could be classified as a weakening move because it loses this wonderful diagonal actually right into white's camp. I'll tell you what, Lambo, you don't mind if I call you Lambo. Why don't you set the board up at this point and experiment with that? What happens when the bishop takes that pawn? That would be kind of fun to see, wouldn't it? Maybe I'll do that too. Not here on live, but I'm going to, because I've got so many other traps I want to show you, but that might be kind of fun to share. That'd be cool. I'll give you that assignment, my friend. Hey, I'm the backyard professor. Why not? I can make assignments, right? Here's the trigger. Look who has the center. White. Yeah. So when you have it, use it. Attack the knight. And what happens is the knight comes over here to the rim. Not the best place for a knight. Now, there are times you got to set your position up better. You got to coordinate some pieces to where you do want your knight on the rim for a move or two, but don't just leave him there for like 18 moves. That's not good. Even Bobby Fischer, I know Mikhail Tal, Alexander Alekin, Aaron Nimzovich, everybody at one point or another in the games, some of the games had a knight on the rim. But this is a misplaced knight in this regard. And here's why. Because white has the attack. So the bishop's being hit, and you say, well, now, one, this is the most important bishop because it is keeping an eye on the weakest pawn in the original lineup, the f7. The white squared bishop in the Italian is a really important piece. So there's no reason to give it up. So wouldn't it be better to get the bishop out of the way. Or at least bolster. Yeah, it would be better just to get the bishop out of the way, because that bishop is a great bishop. You don't want to lose it. But remember, sometimes you would be reacting to black. So this could be a turnaround punch that black would have to take over the initiative. But you've got the center, right? You push the pawn and misplaced that knight. Keep pushing the pawn, because now you're hitting the bishop. So the reason, and this makes such beautiful logical sense, I'm not going to tell you ahead of time. Let's watch it play out. There's a reason why you're still on the attack. That's a terrific pawn. That's splendid. And you say, well, what do you mean that's splendid? The bishop takes the pawn, and now you got nothing in the center. Yes, you do. Look, what do you see? One of my favorite things, the rook. The rook! Look, the rook! Put that rook right there. Check. Now you have the file. And he didn't get castled yet. So he can't even oppose the rook, which is pure bonus for you. Realistically, in a way, see, when you castle, your opponent will castle. Vice versa. When you finally see what the opponent intends, if he castles, then you want to pretty much castle also, because castling digs out that rook from way back in that corner and it puts it on an open file. And if you can at all help it, don't just let your opponent have the open file, man. That's suicide. That's not good chess strategy at all, by any means. Hey, Ron Belonger. Yeah. Target. Yes, sir. Get target conscious. Thank you, Jeremy Silman. May you rest in peace, my dear teacher. Yeah. Target, you darn right. The most important target. Anything can be a target. This is awesome because you further develop. You absolutely magnificently take total control. And I mean of the whole board with just that one move. So this is really good. And you say, all right, but realistically, sincerely, you're making a whoop-de-doo out of nothing. Am I? Because now that you move the bishop back, let's look at the implication. Now the bishop is pinned, and that's an absolute pin to the king. Now, a pin against any other piece, say a queen or a rook, and sometimes even a knight or a bishop, those aren't absolute pins. The piece can move. You'll lose the piece behind, of course. I mean, if you're going to pin a piece to a queen and the piece goes ahead and moves anyway, if it doesn't move with a check or whatever, then you can take the queen. But in this instance, that piece can't move. It is pinned. And what's the theme? Yeah, you pin a piece, now you attack it. You see how the plan for white automatically is unfolding, and white has the plan. Black is responding to what white is doing because he put a very strong forcing move. Black has to address this. That's not an option. So that tells you white has the initiative. White's getting to do what he wants to do, and black can go suck eggs, cowboy. You are mine, Chumpley. Basically, right? I mean, don't have that attitude in a tournament. Be nice and polite, but you are mine, Chumpley. Right? So, and watch. So, yes, he blocks. Ta-da. Now get this. Remember me saying about tempo, right? moves, tempo. Okay, the bishop came out and then it went back to block. That's a lost tempo. He was able to develop a rook, attack the king. The bishop had to move again to block the check. And now with tempo, white gets to develop another piece hitting the pinned piece. That piece is gone. That piece is going to be lost. Unless, of course, black really does something fast and castles. You see how that works? Isn't that cool how that works? Black is going to lose the bishop because there's no reason not to take the bishop. You say, well, the queen will retake. No, she won't, because you've got the file. Cool coordination, isn't it? Yeah. That square right there with the rook and the bishop attack. Great stuff. This is the beginning of superb tactics. That is so cool to see. So you go, yeah, well, here you are making hay again about such a spectacular move. Yeah, your pieces are coordinated. Sure, you're attacking a pinned piece, but I have a pawn refutation. So why are you making such a big deal about it? Here's why. Because the piece is stronger than the pawn, especially in this instance. So I would say the difference between let's say a 11 to 1300 and maybe someone who's 1500 or more, the 11 to 1300 would say, well, that didn't work out, but I do want to keep the pressure. I think I'll bump back. That's passive. You lose the initiative entirely by doing something like it. Or I mean, even worse is coming back to here, which would be utterly ridiculous. Don't ever do that. If you can't stand the fact that your bishop's attacked, then at least stay up in the field and nab you a really spectacular diagonal. But there's still a better way to play this, and that's just simply take the pawn. Because you're opening up the king who has not castled. It's worth a piece or even 2-piece sacrifice. Sack the bishop because you're going to open up the king. Notice why this works sincerely. It is inevitably a law of chess. White has such excellent active developed pieces. How many did I point to? 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't tell me that's not active. 5. 5 pieces. Count how many active pieces black has. There's nothing. There's nothing. That's why this attack works. And interesting, isn't it, that it all began because the bishop retreated in the first place. None of this would have happened had the bishop simply taken the pawn or taken the knight when he had the chance to exchange it. Isn't that fascinating to see that? I think this is so instructive. Just take the pawn, baby. And you say, okay, well, the pawn takes the bishop. Let's analyze this microscopically for just a minute. This is worth the time, I promise. I'm not wasting your time here. I want to show you this because when I saw this, I go, aha, aha. I got this idea from one of the YouTube video. I can't remember which one. It's all right. So in this position, the white, he pinned and he attacked the pin, and now the pawn will block. In this movement, here, this square is covered by the pawn. This square is covered by this pawn and this pawn. This square is covered by this pawn. And this square is covered by this pawn. It changes when he pushes the pawn, and I'm not saying it was a bad move, it's just the nature of how pawns work. When he pushes the pawn, all of a sudden, the squares, light colored squares, which the king is on, start becoming weak. The king is not accessible to attack here. This is a preparatory move, attacking the bishop, not the king, right? So by bumping, thinking you're going to chase the knight away. And see, isn't this our mentality? Look, hey, BYP, you idiot. He attacks, I have to defend. Isn't that the majority of our thinking when we're playing chess? It is mine. That's why I love this lesson. I'm thinking out loud on purpose. And I am taking extra time because this is a really important way to up our rating. This is a way to strengthen our chess. It has changed the dynamic of the king accessibility. We have a white squared bishop. The light squares have just opened up. That's vital to see. So rather than letting him maintain this, take the pawn without question, and you're still attacking the bishop. Now, when he responds to your sacrificed piece, what do we see on the king side? Weaknesses everywhere. The king is available to attack. The king is available to attack. This piece is pinned. The king is available to attack. This piece is not guarding that pawn. That's an illusion. The piece can't move still. The rook pins him. So you say, well, you got rid of the attacking bishop that can attack that. Correct. You sacrificed that bishop, but it changed the actual character of the chessboard, and woohoo! Let's keep attacking. Because now, and how do you attack a king? Yeah, we've been through all this, right? But it helps to remind, get your pieces closer to the king. Knight, king, 5. And you're, come on, dude, get serious. I thought you were going to show us some good chess today. Yeah. What? Come on. You're blockading the pin. So you're inviting the pawn to take the knight. He can't. If the pawn takes the knight, you're going to kill him with a checkmate. You go, that's not checkmate. No. That is. Remember the bishop? See, we're in attack mode with white. Yeah? So this is really important to recognize the dynamics with the pinned piece. That piece is not guarding that pawn. It's in the way of the king from a rook point of view, but the king is entirely vulnerable on the, guess what? White squares, which the dark bishop helped open up for the moves. But you got to open up the queen by getting that knight out of the way. So sacrifice the knight. See if this guy doesn't see the danger, because you don't need the knight to checkmate the king, right? You really don't need that knight. So throw a little bit of spice and pepper and goodies at your opponent. Say, hey, Bubba, yo, you, I'm playing you. Go ahead, take the knight. Yeah. Hey, look, I'm giving you the knight for free. Yeah. Take it. Now, in a way, what's crazy is he really has to take that knight because it's going to help checkmate if he doesn't. Oh, sorry. I didn't put the king back. Sorry. Yeah, the king's here. So that's a deadly move. It also puts another piece closer to the king. It opens up the queen option to get closer to the king. This is a fantastic move. Now, what can he do to prevent this? He still has the rook. He hasn't castled, so he deserves to be blown wide open, which is the correct strategy, right? Well, you do have a defense, though. Pawn rook 4. Now the queen can't come in there because the rook will take her. The pawn can't be taken. Blap, blap, right? The rook's defending the pawn. So, live to fight another day. Okay. Target. Someone said earlier, target is important, right? So this square is no longer available as a target. Shift your focus to this one. Same effect. Go relocate and go behind the pawn. Simple, right? Who else? Hey, Fatsoul, how are you? Ron Bellinger. Yeah. Ayusha Bhakti. Thank you. And AJ. Yeah, good to see all of you. Thank you for showing up. This is fun stuff. I'm taking time to explain all this out for us because I know we want to see the trap quickly, but as you go back through this video, if you understand the logistics behind the trap, it's fabulous. That's why you'll remember it. You'll see the point of the tactics. And there are tactics all over the point for one reason. Even though Fischer didn't play the Italian game a lot, even though some grandmasters won't, the rest of us can. It is played on grandmaster level because the ultimate aim is the ultimate weakness from the very beginning because of the nature of the way the pawns are. The weakest square in the lineup when you begin a game is the f7 square for black and the f2 square for white. The Italian bringing the bishop to here, and notice that bishop has stayed right there. The effect is to go after the weakness. And because he sacrificed his bishop, man, has he opened up the weaknesses. So he puts a blockade in your way, go behind it. So now what are you going to do? Well, what are you going to do? Rook 3. Protect the weakness. Right? Perfectly sensible. Remember, as white, you are attacking. So move up one more step. Same effect. The pawn and rook stopped this one. The rook stops this one. So you notice what you're doing? You're progressively targeting the weak white squares on the diagonal that gets to the king. Just move up, and now the same effect is your queen's going to go there to checkmate. Very easy. It's simple to see. And notice this, you guys. That's a triply hit square now. He still hasn't had time to take the knight. Did I not tell you the knight was safe? Really? At first, what looked like a really ridiculous move is applicable and doable because of the open file and the weakness of those white squares. So now target that one. What are you going to do here? Rook back. Now, of course, I mean, come on. You're not going to go back to here to target that and move back and forth. You don't need a repetition for a draw here. You've got the win, go for the win, right? What's the one square you can see that is accessible to continue the attack? That's the question. Because now we're in attack mode. We go full out, even if it calls for a sacrifice of the queen or the sacrifice of the rook on the open file. If you're going to get a checkmate and you have to sack those, and this is the hardest concept for me. This is for me. It's tough for me to sack material. I've got to get over that psychological hang up. But if it calls for that, then be willing to sacrifice the queen and the rook to get the checkmate if you have to, right? There you go. Good eye. Good eye. Queen G8, right on. Yes, sir. AJ, Queen B8. Thank you, AJ. Check. Notice you're still producing forcing moves. Yeah. So that means that you have kept the initiative and black has to react to you. You're playing your game that you want. Black isn't at all. Look, he is still entirely 100% undeveloped. Okay, 95% developed. His rook is developed, but he just lost it. But we're looking for bigger fish than just the rook. But just be aware that if something really dumb and bad happened here, nothing can, because there's nothing out. But if it did, you still got the rook and you're up material. But we're looking for bigger fish to fry. Take that. Bishop blocks. But see the power of the battery when you put the bishop and the queen on the same color? And understand that this piece that, what, for the last 3 moves has been threatened, right? Look at that. Something's wrong. That's supposed to be check. What did I do wrong? Bishop, bishop 1. Oh, yeah, the discovered check. Nothing's wrong. The discovered check. Yeah, see, that even got me for just a brief moment, right? The whole coordinated development means you can move a piece like that and discovered check. The only thing you can do is rook to king 2. And now, queen to b7. Queen to bishop 7. Checkmate. Is that not one of the coolest checkmates you've ever seen? Because again, that pesky rook on the open file down here pins the rook. Even though it blockaded the check when it moved over, it cannot take the queen because it'll be in check. So that's how you do it. The bishop is threatened, the queen checkmates, the rook can't move, and none of these guys ever even moved in the entire game because white did the forcing moves. He just kept going, making black react to him. Anyway, that's fun stuff. Yeah. Hey, John Harrison. Yeah, that is a fun game. Hey, pushing your own agenda. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody. So this is fun stuff when you begin to recognize that you really can and are legitimately justified, and you ought to at least develop a mental attitude of being more aggressive in your chess. There is absolutely nothing wrong in attacking in chess whatsoever. If people say, well, you play chess mean, you always attack and all that, you get a smile and say, yeah, you ain't seen nothing yet, baby. Right? Don't ever let anyone intimidate you and say, well, isn't chess supposed to be a gentleman's game? And you get to tell them, look, that was the 1700s. We're in a new millennium. Let's get going with the real thing. Right? I love that. I love that. But here's another real good one. And now this is another interesting situation. Pawn King 4, Pawn King 4. Let's see. Woohoo! I really enjoyed your videos when I was a beginner. Oh, well, thank you, Pushing Your Own Agenda. Yeah, he's got the right handle. Pushing your own agenda. That's what we're doing when we gain the initiative in chess. Oh, my pleasure, AJ. Nicholas Person. It really was, wasn't it? Yeah, here, I'm going to put your comment up here. Nicholas Person says, that's an amazing amount of forcing moves. And this is the theme. Thank you. That's a good point, because if you can find, the more forcing moves you can find in a row means you're making your opponent react to you more often than not. And it doesn't have to be just the checks to a king that is a forcing move at all. I think we're pretty much aware of that. I mean, you can make forcing moves against a queen all day long, just threatening her. This is exactly the reason why you don't want to develop your queen early if you can help it. Yeah? So thanks for bringing that up. That's an excellent point. It was fun to see the forcing moves. Let's see what happens here. And again, the Gioco Piano, and this is actually one of the main lines. A very good response is, if you find yourself as black playing the Gioco, this is a great opening. We'll show you where you can go wrong. You got to expect, if someone studied, that they're going to push that C pawn. Please understand that. And it's perfectly acceptable to bring your knight out without question. And do expect this without question. Probably the safest response is take the pawn. We see this in pretty much all these traps at this point. At this point, if you're playing white and you see him take your pawn, now you've got this in mind too. So understand that you do want your pawn presence in the center. That's why this pawn was bumped, so that you can maintain these two pawns. But it's also an acceptable thing to castle at this point. Isn't that interesting? You say, well, am I not going to lose my central pawns on this if your opponent will castle? And by the way, you do lose your pawn if he retakes. You retake. What that leaves you with is the D file open, which is always a great place for a rook. So the exchange of pawns is not a negative, because later, as you get fully developed, you actually have to exchange pawns to put the rooks on the files, which is what makes them more energetic and useful, right? So pawn takes pawn, castles. So if he castles, now you take the pawn here. Pawn takes pawn. The bishop will come to knight 3. Notice this truly is a better retreat, even though you're in trouble as black. I mean, you can see it. This game almost plays itself. You can see it with those two magnificent central pawns, can't you? Come on. It's obvious. But really, this retreat, I mean, if you find yourself in this position, dang, man. But this retreat is absolutely better than going back to there. I'm going to emphasize that again. I made a big whoop-de-doo in the last game, but really, seriously, don't do that if you can help it. One, you're blocking in your queen, right? So, and two, you're losing this. I mean, you're across from the king, right? A bishop across from the king. Sure, there's stuff in between, but later on there may not be. And then you've got tactics coming. So that's a better retreat. Hit that knight right on the nose. Why not? You've got the center pawns. Attack. So look at how the influence of the black developed pieces have been diminished. I mean, he's shrinking, right? What do you see when you see this position, you guys? A total mountain of white pieces. That's like a Mount Everest. And what do you see over here? A lowly plain, just kind of sitting there blasé. Let's keep watching. There must have been an earthquake in Nepal because Mount Everest grew taller, right? And the plain of black just got smoother. Who's going this way with their pawns? Who is going this way backward with their pieces? This is powerful. This is so unbelievable that you don't even want to quit. You say, okay, get greedy, baby. Give me more, give me more, give me more. Well, take more. Look at that. Look at that. Wow. Holy nightmare, Batman. So, of course, by now, hey, look, black can finally do something. Pawn takes pawn, and again, you're hitting the knight. So, knight comes out to knight tree. Okay, yeah, granted, he's a guardian of the king. The king is castled, so okay, not a whole lot lost, right? Wrong. I mean, this reminds me of Aaron Nimzovich. This is how Nimzovich used to manhandle his opponents with the center. Look at this. Bishop, king, knight, 5 with tempo. You get another piece out there, and now he has to move his queen. He is going to react to you. So that developing move with tempo is that is what you want. Yes, give me more of this good food and spice. You betcha, baby. So, okay, yeah, it gets the knight off the back rank. Yeah, so the knight is pinned. And again, this isn't an absolute pin like the last game, but it is developed as a defensive maneuver. So it's on defense. It's on defense, which means, hey, if we get more of our pieces out than black can, and his pieces are on defense, but ours are not, we should have a pretty comfortable game. We should have a good game. But get more pieces out. That's the key, right? Well, of course, you're not going to just let that bishop sit there. Look, if you can at all help it, if you're playing black, you don't want that bishop to take. Well, it won't hurt you in this case because you would respond with the queen. You wouldn't retake with the pawn because it's going to blow your pawn structure in front of your castle king all to smithereens. And the board, again, reading the board, really important. Thank you, Jeremy Silman, my great teacher, at least through his books, is open relatively. And white has a lot of stuff that's out here in the field, even that pawn. And so if you get taken and you do retake with that pawn and he obliterates the king side, there's a lot of ways for white to just throw pieces over there and clobber you. So you got to be careful. So let's get rid of the bishop. a necessary evil. Yes, you kind of gently weaken the king's side, but that at this point, because of the way this thing looks, you really can't let him stay there. Or if you can at all help it, don't let him do the damage, right? So yeah, that makes sense. As white, now I've given you the hint, I've given you the secret, right? So look, this guy is out here galloping, enjoying his day. This guy is out here galloping in the sun. He's enjoying his day. The bishop's taking a walk and he's delightfully eyeing, guess where? White squared bishop, you guys. Where is he in the Gioco piano? What's he eyeing? The weakest pawn. Now, castled, the rook covers the pawn. I get that. But the pawn is pinned. Just recognize that. Later, that could be very handy. This guy is out here deciding, hey, my horses are having so much fun out in the field that I want one of his. Right? Greed, get greedy. You're in attack mode, man. The field is open. You're ready to romp like crazy. The queen can come up here anywhere. Okay. I'm getting too excited. Because the queen actually, you don't do a passive move and save the bishop. And isn't this the last game? Guess which bishop? The dark squared one. Yeah, but what a great job he's doing, right? But okay, yeah, the lowly pawn is attacking the mighty bishop. Well, I have to keep that bishop. That would be a passive move mistake, no doubt about it. You can ignore the threat and enhance your own threat and your own power. Power, think power. 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 Because now you're threatening his knight. Okay, so you're saying, well, doesn't that mean this just ends up being just an exchange? He takes your bishop, you take his knight. Yes, except for one vital difference. Look where the pieces are being exchanged at, right? Right in front of his king. And you're destroying the structure. So this, you're wringing your hands, you're clapping, you're saying, yeah, I love this. Bravissimo. Yeah, I love this. Oh, yeah, baby. Yeah, baby. In fact, it's so powerful, you force the king up. The king is the only one that can defend the horse. And now you have bishop take bishop pawn. Move order is important in these, and this is what takes practice. It's just you play a few hundred games of these like this, and you get used to which piece to sacrifice, which piece to exchange. Now, this isn't necessarily a bishop sacrifice. And you're saying, yeah, but the last game you said the white squared bishop was really a vital piece. I'm not changing that tune. In this game, the white squared bishop is a really valuable piece for this reason. In this instance, it's not a sack. You got a pawn, but not just any pawn, a very important kingside pawn. And look how it changes the dynamic here. Once again, a pawn has been removed and a rook has been replaced. What does that mean? The pawn covered the knight, but the rook doesn't. That's a significant difference here. That's why the bishop taking that pawn is such a big deal, because look how it changed the dynamic. And what do you do with that dynamic once that happens? The knight is pinned. Remember the idea of pinned pieces? I mean, the tactics in the Italian game, they just rock and roll. Ugh! It's like a Marvel Comics character. This is the Incredible Hulk moving in, baby. Yeah, we're going to smash, smash, just like the Hulk does. Because the knight is pinned, what do? You attack the pinned piece. That's the tactic. You attack the pinned piece. Notice all this time, because one, he ignored the threat. He didn't move his bishop to safety. He really didn't. He said, nah, don't worry about that. Number one, the bishop has stayed right here near this king bunch, and he is influencing things, right? I know, yeah, I get it. The knight is covered, you say. So the bishop's not putting pressure on the knight. Yes, he is. He really is. Actually, crazy as it sounds, the pawn is threatening the bishop, but the bishop is pressuring that pawn. But don't worry about the bishop, because look how you've changed the position, because you took your bishop and attacked. You hit a lowly pawn. You gave up the power, the best bishop, mind you, the white squared bishop in the Gioco Piano, the one you want to hang on to. You changed it out and changed what is protected. Now the knight is no longer protected. It's vulnerable and it's pinned. And because you still don't care about this, you didn't move the bishop to say, okay, look, I've accomplished my objective. I pinned the piece. No, you're not done yet. Now you attack the pinned piece. You attack the pinned piece, and you've still, this is crazy beans, man, but you still are threatened. Your bishop is still under attack. But look at the difference in the power of white now. Why this, and this have not gotten even developed in the game, and this, even though it's a wonderful diagonal and pinning white's f-pawn, is absolutely no threat whatsoever. What a great illustration, man. It doesn't get better than this. I'm not even kidding. It doesn't get better than this. Now, I hope I didn't, okay, knight king 5, attack. So now black has to say, okay, I got to pull a trigger. I really do. This is getting way too tense. I do have to take the bishop. Thank you for your service, good bishop. You have been a magnificent piece. And the reason why is because now the queen can strike. The white squared bishop sacrificed itself to change the power dynamic of the protection of the king. The rook here is useless against this attack. But if there had been a pawn there, this could not have happened. So you sack the bishop. The second bishop, you just leave while you put your pieces on a more dynamic active square. Eventually, the second bishop goes. You gave him both your bishops so that you could get him out of his hiding place. King, knight 1, and mate. No, he won the exchange. I apologize. It says he won the exchange, which he did. He won the exchange, and now he can go on to win the game. That was the whole point, to win the exchange. So, wow, what a terrific concept on the difference between keeping the energy, keeping the initiative, keep the flow going. Once you attack, And notice again, it's all the pieces, including the pawns. I mean, was that one of the coolest chess openings you've ever seen, where those pawns just basically terrified all of Black's pieces and made them retreat? Ooh, ooh, they just kept going backwards, and they couldn't coordinate together because of that. Because of that fabulous pawn thrust, it opened up the board, and because he kept putting his pieces on the right squares at the right time, White's pieces were far more coordinated than Black's were. That's the lesson of this. So, I mean, come on, this is fun stuff. You don't get better than that, because the theme, what I'm hoping, and I'm speaking more for myself than you guys. Oh, who is calling me on my own? All right, sorry about that. Hopefully they won't call back yet. I didn't recognize the number. I have no idea. It was probably a spam phone call. Don't just answer phone calls and talk all the time, because they've got computer generators that get your voice, and they can make you say anything they want you to say. So be careful with spam calls is all I would say. All righty. Let's get this reset up. What a fun game. What a fun concept. I hope you enjoyed that. That's one of my favorites. That is just so cotton picking cool. Belaglavi's up. Good to see you, my friend. Total momentum. Right on, John. Yeah. Yeah, King to H8 was not mate. Thank you. I spoke out of turn. Yeah. Okay, so that was fun stuff. Let me mark this off. And I do believe I have another. Yeah, I've got another Gioco Piano. Let's keep going on these Gioco Pianos, because the repetition will help us get the idea of this opening. And we'll see many variations, which could really seriously and realistically come up in all of our games. The classic notion. Bishop to c4 is the move. Black will agree with that. And again, the classic move here. Now, in this instance, he's going to support his center with the queen 3, and he's going to hit the center with queen 4. And we have the same pawn exchange. Pawn takes the pawn, and pawn takes the pawn, hitting the bishop. And now bishop knight 5 check. This loses in this line. Yeah, it's probably effective against the Muller attack, what is called the Muller attack, but this loses at this point because, and this is so interesting, we have it drummed into our heads that we really have to castle. And I get that. It's all good. But in this instance, just move out of check. I know. It's tough because you want to get that rook out, right? But watch. Let's see what happens. Bishop, queen 2, once again bringing a piece out. Queen, knight 3. So rather than going direct into the center and influencing the center on a vertical basis, the queen comes out, pressuring the bishop, and it is the diagonal influence across the center over to a potentially weak king, because he's going to be in the center this time. Oh, I forgot to put the rook up there. Holy cow, what a nightmare. He did not give him rook odds. Wow, he did not give him rook odds. No and no. Apologize about the confusion that might have caused. Queen, knight 3, and now the bishop will come to rook 4. And so the Gioco Piano is emphasizing the weakness on the f7. He's going to take advantage of that once again. Pretty much every one of the Italian games, in one way or another, whatever tactics you can drum up, depending on how you put your pieces together, depending on which ones you develop and where, that F7 is always going to be a target more or less. So just, if you're black, just recognize that's honestly the whole strategy of why it revolves around that F7 in this opening. At least that's what it seems like to me. Bishop takes pawn, and of course it's the battery. Now, it would have been real nice, right, if the bishop would have been behind the queen, which would be the ideal setup. But did he have time? That would have taken 3 more moves, and by then, who knows where black would have been with the king. So just take the pawn, disrupt the ability of the castling king, and now this is interesting. This is fun to see. I love to see the different variations. Just go ahead and take the knight. Bishop takes the knight. Whoa. So the rook will take the bishop. And this is so interesting how this develops, because once again, the bishop is sacking itself. And this isn't just the weak bishop. This is the light squared bishop. And technically, I'm lying. It didn't sack itself. It exchanged for an undeveloped knight. Notice that. See, ooh, a lot of chess coaches or teachers or grandmasters say, what in the Sam Hill are you doing? I mean, you had a beautiful developed piece and you exchanged it for an undeveloped piece. As a general rule, don't do that. In this instance, it works, though, because it's interesting how the knights are short pieces, meaning they can't influence all the way across the board like the bishops, the rooks, the queens. And yet, just a couple of quick hops, blam, blam, and they're right in there. That's fun to see. Avoiding any forks, absolutely, but that doesn't matter because you got this one. Isn't that fascinating that the bishop exchange, the developed, not just the any bishop, the light squared bishop, the developed bishop took the stupid, undeveloped, weak, useless knight, exchanged power for punk to move the rook, which gave this knight a chance to deliver a check. That's fascinating, because what happens now is checkmate. Develop with tempo. Is that not just astonishing? You've got the crisscross, and you've got the knight stopping these. That is an astonishing tactic. So that's a quick, short one that says, you know, it's games like this that has helped us fall in complete love with the Giuoco piano. So, fun stuff. Let's do another one. Let's look at another one, because the variety of the ways of opening are just in the billions of moves, potential moves. Yeah, it's true. The majority of them are going to be useless. So it really doesn't give you the right impression to say, yeah, there's billions of opportunity, because billions of those opportunities would never, ever be played. But those that are played can give us clues how to continue playing better chess for ourselves. And yes, we're being greedy. We want to play better chess for ourselves. So let's do it. Another Giuoco piano. Let's take a look. Pawn, king, 4, pawn, king, 4, knight, king, bishop, 3. Typical standard stuff. The telltale sign of the Italian, bishop to the c4. The good response, bishop to here. And now, this is what I was telling you a couple games earlier. There are variations where, rather than bumping here to hit here, which is several of the games that we've seen today, now let's look at a new variation. also very good to play. He's going to go ahead and support the king pawn. And this is interesting because now that changes the dynamic of that black knight and what he's going to do. Now that's not an option to take that pawn. But then again, we're not going to have the same type of exchange in the center either. We aren't going to have the same type of development because now the knight develops. So now we really aren't going to get the c3, d4 white pawn push to attack the center. This is going to develop in a different manner, and therefore black very properly says, okay, then let's support the center, pawn queen 3. Bishop king knight 5 once again, or g5, bishop g5. Sorry, this is old nomenclature. You know, we're keeping the nostalgia alive on this chess channel. The old days, the golden old and out of fashion days, yeah. But this is so standard. Bishop king knight 5, and he's going to ask him the question right now, what's your intention? What do you want to do? He goes ahead and takes the knight. Instantly takes the knight. Rather than mess up the pawn structure, because he probably will castle kingside, you can retake with the queen, which is realistically the advisable move. You have options here, but black is actually not that far away from being able to castle queenside either. Just notice that. He's done pretty good getting his pieces out here. It's unlikely that's what he's going to do, though. But just in case, absolutely. When we have now in the position, because of the way the pawns have moved, these pawns have come to here. You still have the c pawn, but there's a lot of stuff before this c pawn moves. This kind of a hole might make a really good outpost for the knight. Yeah. Conversely, we have the same principle. Because of the backward d6 pawn, it did not come up to here, and nor should it, but it does give good support. That gives us the d5. Why not use that hole, especially when you can hit the queen in the process? Here comes the downside of retaking with the queen instead of the pawn, right? Because now the queen gets attacked. You are able to put your knight in on a nice square, an outpost square with tempo. Let's see what happens. Queen would come all the way to queen 1. Realistically, you've got this knight here. This knight here can cause havoc against a queen if she decides to stay out here. Technically, really seriously, putting the queen out early is not the best strategy before you get all your pieces out, because then you understand the nature of the board. When your opponent also gets all of his pieces out, then you can see, 1, which side of the board you're going to play on, and 2, which squares are best for your queen. You can't know that if you bring her out too early. So in this instance, the retreat of the queen all the way back does make sense. See, there's always exceptions. I mean, I didn't make it this way, but there really are always exceptions like that. Isn't that fascinating? So the queen goes all the way back. And now look at this. So a little bit later development now white prepares for the d4. So this is going to be fun. The difference here is because he went ahead and just supported this knight, and this knight's been taken anyway. The bishop took that knight. That is what helped you establish this outpost. But the difference in this game is the knight was able to come here and get the outpost. So Now you can still hit the center. That's kind of fun to see. Very important. And bishop king 3. Nope, that's the wrong move. That is the wrong move for this reason, because you're going to hit the center. And what this is going to do, and of course, we're going to see the same typical pawn exchange from black. Pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, C will take D, etc. Hitting the bishop. The bishop will come back here only because he's forced to. Coming back there wouldn't help. Bishop, knight 3, and the knight's on the outpost, and now we have an excellent way to use the knight to get rid of the bishop. That's what an outpost is for, is to be able to take pieces or pawns or weak squares in the opponent's side. Nice exchange here. Knight takes bishop, pawn takes. True, this opens up the partial open A file for black. That doesn't matter because once again, and this is so cool, this emphasis will help us appreciate the gioco piano better with the intent of the real importance of bumping this C pawn first before hitting the center. Once you have these center 2 pawns, they can terrorize the opponent, and he does so. Look at that fork. That is so fun. I mean, come on. It doesn't get better than that. Of course, he's going to try to, again, knight on the ring. He's displaced, but he is hitting the bishop, right? Knight, rook 4. Well, nothing doing. No. It's all good. Don't worry about it. You say, well, no, hold it. Take the bishop. Wait, you want to keep your bishop. So it's all good to bump him back, because now when bishop comes knight 5, you go blam. Remember, the knight on the rim is bad, but you trap the knight. So now you get a free knight. You're a piece up. You're in a wonderful, dynamic, central controlling position. You have the ability to castle quick. Your queen can get very active across the way. Your rook can come over to here to the partial open file. You've got a great game being a piece up. So that's a fun one. That's a cool one. I really liked that one. Okay. Boy, I'm talking 200 miles an hour. I hope you're understanding some of this. I'm honestly not trying to be obtuse, but if I'm obtuse, oh well, then I'll have to, learn how to talk better maybe. Woohoo! Okay, so let's look at another one that is also really kind of nifty. I love these repetitive repeats of the main stage opening of the main line of the openings, because they really do help solidify it in our minds how to use these openings when you begin to practice playing the Italian game against your friends and online. You can begin to see, if they haven't studied it, then the way you can coordinate this C4 bishop on this F7 square with a rook once you castle. Stuff like that, really, you begin seeing stuff like that, and it makes the game more exciting. So let's take another look at another gioco piano. Once again, typical knight out, bishop's out, bishop c4, bishop c5, pawn queen 3. Okay, so again, we're going to see this delay of pushing the c3 pawn. He's going to go ahead and immediately support the king pawn. This enables him to bring out his knight on a better square and get to this powerful post. That's the difference in the way you play your pawns. And that's a significant, interesting difference, isn't it? It's kind of fun to notice that if you haven't noticed it before. It's really kind of cool. So pawn queen 3, and really, truly, if you do play against this as black, the knight out is pretty much standard stuff. Knight, and now he castles early. Okay, so you castle early and see single-handedly, step by step, just 1, 2, 3, 4. White's got all his minor pieces out. That's a great way to open. No goofing around, no attempting any traps or tricks, because as Fisher says, and I love this saying, I've said it in several of my videos, I'll keep repeating it, it is from a superior position that the tactics come out. So develop your pieces, bump your queen up, connect your rooks, castle first, bump your queen up, connect your rooks, and then get your heavy pieces in the game, and then attack is an exceptionally solid way to play chess. Let's see what he does. He's going to ask the question. What are you going to do? Amazingly, and see, this is the fun of this stuff, right? You get to see something new. H4? Wow. Okay, I get the idea. I get it. I get the idea. You're going to open up the H file for the rook. But the really crazy thing is, if black follows for it, I mean, you know, you are a piece up. That's close to irresistible. But here we begin to see the juxtaposition between material and board position. Material is absolutely critical and crucial in so many games. I mean, if you lose a rook during an attack, that either you blundered or you didn't see the, if you had to do the go down the exchange, take a knight for a rook and it doesn't work out, then material matters. But position also makes a difference. That kind of makes it, I don't want to say this wrong, it gives you a chance to not be so focused on your material that you miss out on a winning position. And what I mean by that is a winning position is an accurate or a really good coordinating of your chess pieces. That's valuable, right? So let's see what happens here. Pawn took the bishop. He shouldn't have. Pawn takes the pawn. Now white doesn't. Now, this is crazy. See the exception. Maybe white's trying an experiment, but now to castle wouldn't help you because the rook is developed. He's on an open file. Fascinating. So do you leave the king in the center? I don't know. Let's take a look. I personally wouldn't want to if I could at all help it. And now look at this. Here comes black. So the counter attack, well, actually, it's the main attack. White hasn't started attacking yet. Always keeping in mind in the Italian, and I'm saying this repetitively for my sake, keeping in mind the Italian, the bishop c4, is pinning this pawn so that with a pawn here, and if he could get that knight somewhere else and start ramming pawns up here, this pawn cannot help stop the pawn storm. In some variations, that's really critical. So just remember, you got that pinned to the king until the king moves, right? And guess what? No sooner do I speak than he shows pawn knight 6. Very interesting push. Now the attack is on. Actually, isn't that interesting? The knight is coming to here because you know the knight wants to come to here. He's got the square covered. Look at the square, you guys. The weak square on the white side, and the knight did take it. Well, that's what we were aiming for, is white. The weak f7 square. Black has actual, now you see the value of, if you're playing the black pieces, the value of responding when he responds bishop c4, the value of your bishop to bishop c5 is exactly the same. It's pointing to his weakest square in the setup, and now the queen is threatened and the rook is threatened That's a terrific fork. Black's turning the tables. That's really important to understand this. However, I know I still, this is where I have a lot of work in my psychology to do, you guys. I'm not going to say, yes, I am above such pettiness. No, this would have absolutely made me groan. It would have terrified me. The knight takes the pawn. Are you flippin' kidding me, man? Would I have seen that move? Are you flippin' kidding me, man? Would you? After a fork like that? Are you kidding me? And sure enough, knight takes the queen. Well, you better have something dang good on the table, buddy, if you're going to let that fork work, right? Check. Remember, isn't it interesting that this game is revolving around those weakest squares from the opening, the F2 and the F7? And both players have successfully attacked that weakness and it's borne fruit on both players' side. So you've got the attack. And again, bishop covers. You've also got a wickedly close knight, and you might have serious trouble. So what have we got? Rook takes the pawn. So, I mean, you can win the exchange, right? But a more important potential tactical feature is the rook is now pinned, right? So what do you do to pinned pieces? Attack them. Let's see if that happens. Absolutely. He just goes all out. He's up the exchange, baby. Bishop takes rook. King, bishop 1. And don't forget, you have the open file on the H. You actually had an almost invisible attacker because he never had to move off of his home square to be valuable, right? He was attacking all that time. And you ran out of attack options here. You blew open the king side, but you ran out of attack options. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else you can do because if you go to here to check, either the king can take the bishop or the queen can take the knight. So that's a complete waste of time. What do? You bring in the reason you opened up the rook file. Rook 8. King comes to king 2. This is so beautiful. Okay, look. You started your attack. Your pieces are excellently coordinated together to get the king in trouble. Now he's out in the open. Now, at this point, the temptation is so powerful, you got the queen. That's a great exchange. Rook takes the queen, knight retakes the king retakes the rook, and you got a queen for a rook. You're winning, that's true. But what about this move? One of Jeremy Silman, Artur Yusupov in his chess course. Bobby Fischer did this all the time, no joke. Use every piece in the attack. So this guy wasn't doing a lot. Okay, yeah, he could have exchanged the knight. You notice that it's been a couple of moves ago that the black knight took the queen, and you want vengeance. You want revenge. I'm going to get that dirty little guy back. I'm going to take him. I'm going to zip in there and take him, or I'm going to take him with my king. He's going to pay. But he's ignored it. He's continued with his development and coordination of his pieces, and black's attack was successful. So when you're missing your strongest piece, the queen, you can coordinate all of your other pieces into just as powerful an attack without your queen. So the psychology here, I would propose as a potential lesson, the psychology is don't freak out if you don't have the queen. Put all of your pieces, as many as you can, into this to cover more squares. This is called a mating net around the king. That's what you're doing. You're taking away squares that the king can flee to. And by now, you guys have already seen the king, queen, 3, and knight, queen, bishop, 4, checkmate. Because his own bishop, of course, blocks, or knight and bishop block him from getting out. So that's another really cool, fun lesson. Really cool, fun time. Oh wow, I'm moving on to. Oh hey, John, I'm glad. Better late than never. We're glad to have you here. There's no question about that. So good deal. You came in at 10:47, so you've been here just a couple of minutes. Okay, so let me do another one. This is the Giuoco piano is just really one of my favorites. There's just so much to it that gives us ideas to think about, etc. As I show you the top of my head while I'm picking up these chess pieces. Now, it's not only white that gets the best of this, though. Let's take a look at what happens when white goes wrong and black can get in. Now, we saw an inkling of this because that attack of black succeeded. He was a queen up. And did you notice what white's response was? Immediately start getting all of his pieces into this game in such a coordinated forcing manner, including having to sacrifice a piece to keep black reacting to him so that black could not develop his queen and rook. That's important. That's a great strategy. Yeah, and both of them threw in some splendid tactics to get the attack successful. He won the battle getting the queen with that tactic against the weakest square you had, but he lost the war because white was more on the ball of making sure he got more pieces out in a forceful manner. He didn't play passive. And he ignored retaking the knight instead of retaking, and I told you earlier, one move, man, the tempo matters. Just you give your opponent just one move and it could be game over. That's exactly what happened. White did not give black one move by retaking the knight who took the queen. That knight has to pay. I have to exchange. No, he did not. He put his pieces in a coordinated fashion. Okay. Yeah, I've repeated myself ad nauseum on that. Let's go again. Let's do another one. Now, here we will see where white gets clobbered and why. So this is going to be very valuable because it seems to be like the Giuoco piano is all in favor of the white pieces. Nothing could be further from the truth. You have to play it intelligently, both sides. Let's take a look. Once again, we see the supporting of the king pawn in this particular line instead of the push of c3 to push the d4. This is going to be a different setup, which will allow white to bring his knight out. This is a really important variation here. We want to pay attention, and you do want to support your center if you're black that way. Yes. Okay, so now we have an early castle. He's going to bring his rook in here, tuck his king away, and the black has a chance to put a pin. on the kingside knight. So you're castled already, and you've got your knight developed. There hasn't been, it's basically at this point a standoff in the center. Now, either one of them can make the break with a pawn push. So, I mean, it's not locked like you do with pawn chains sometimes, right? There is still an option to make a break. That is, push and change the dynamic of the center, or push and change the dynamic of the center. But neither one of them want to do that right now because they're not quite set up. Again, this pin absolutely affects White's ability to be able to push in the center, because now this knight is not protecting d4. You see that? So White is not safe to push the d4 pawn. So just so we understand. So he does pawn, king, rook 3. And we see the same motive as we saw in the last game, except from the other side of the board. Pawn, king, 4. So, all right. Hey, it happened to black last time. Let's throw it at white and see what happens. And sure enough, white stupidly takes the bishop. In this instance, this is not good, because now we see it's black that has the H file, right? And we see pretty much the same thing in reverse. Knight, king 5, pawn, knight 6. So we understand the motive here of how this works. And now the knight will take the pawn. Same motive, just backwards, except, and now the knight will take the pawn. And the rook, what? And the knight will take the queen. And the pawn will take the pawn check. I think this is just a reversal of the same one. It really is. It's just the other side. The same reversal as what we saw. And then the bishop will take the rook. So this demonstrates that you can do this as either white or black. Rook to 8, king to king 2, of course, and now knight, queen 5, and there's your checkmate. Yeah, so it's either way, either one. That's funny. I didn't know I didn't realize that was yeah, this time white castled too soon and got in trouble. So it works both ways. Yeah, just so you know, you don't have, if you see, after watching all these traps and stuff, and you say, yeah, but BYP showed how white just absolutely wipes out black every time when he plays his Yoko piano. So if I'm playing black and all of a sudden white throws an Italian game at me, I don't know what to do or whatever. That's not necessarily true. No, sir. It's not black that always loses. Not by a long shot. So let's look at another one. This won't be a reversal of the last one, like I said. We've already seen that, but there is still, basically every opening would have just hundreds of traps, depending on how you open. It's fun to focus on for the most part, it's fun to focus on the main lines so that you can at least get a feel for the way the board should look, or the way the pieces should be coordinating, or where the pieces should actually be in relation to each other and the pawns. That is why it is so fun and important to repeat various different openings and all. Everyone's still with me? Yeah. Oh, yeah, we are. Woo, we're growing. Welcome, everybody who's shown up. All you new viewers, all you ladies, all of you new chess people, all of you intermediate chess people, all of you masters and grandmasters. Yes, you didn't know I had secretly 10,000 grandmasters watching my videos, did you? Yeah, well, the interesting news is neither did I. Okay, let's take a look at another one where once again, although I want to make sure. Okay, let's look at another one where once again black gets the edge instead of white. This can go both ways. It depends on how you open up. Now, this is pretty standard mainline stuff that we're going to see for the first several opening moves. Once again, just as a reminder, if you just showed up in the Italian, the emphasis in the gioco piano is on the weakest of the squares because only the king supports that pawn. I should say pawns or square, either way, f7, but this also applies to the white f2. So this is why the mimic of the response with the bishops, those types of tactics that arise because of this, this helps train us to look at diagonals, doesn't it? I mean, that's the impression I get. Yeah, we're looking at diagonals here. Absolutely. And once more, rather than see the preparatory move of c3, we just see the direct bump supporting that king pawn. And rather than bringing out the knight, now he does the same thing. So this will be a little different. And oops, once again, the castling motive. Now, castling is vital. There's no question about that. However, castling too early before you know where your opponent's pieces are going to be committed can get you into trouble, and that's the problem here. Black still hasn't shown where he's going to place his knights or his bishops completely. Black still hasn't even castled. We don't know if he's going to castle on that side or that side. So committing ourselves like this can have consequences. Let's see what happens. So the knight will come out. Realistically, he's going to castle kingside, right? It looks like he's preparing for that. And now this doesn't work. And here's why. He's going to put the question to him and bumping back. Now he wants to keep, and this is valid in some scenarios, he wants to keep the pressure on the knight, right? But, sorry, that way. Once again, you say, okay, but look, black is being foolish because obviously pushing the pawns in front of the king castled side is going to weaken the castled king. But black hasn't castled that side yet. He's not forced to. Sure, he's prepared for it. But those pawns can be real killers in wiping out the fortress of the early castled white king. Let's keep watching. This might get very interesting. So you bump the bishop back again, and here comes the trap. Uh-oh. Now you're virtually forced to start doing drastic stuff. Knight will take the knight pawn. Pawn, rook 5 anyway. Remember, when you, doesn't matter which side, black or white, when you commit yourself to throwing pawns like missiles, this is your slingshot. Just keep pressing until you've done the damage. You don't want to lighten up. In this case, it's only a single pawn, but it is still backed by the rook. So it's still effective in attacking the bishop, just so you know. And now the knight takes the pawn. Yes, he's got the fork. That's true. And this can, just like we saw in the previous game, this can happen. And you still might not win the game. There's the catch. So knight takes the pawn and pawn takes the bishop. And here is the point. Now this castle kingside gets disrupted. It begins to open up. Of course, you've made that commitment with the knight, so you do want to take the queen. And now bishop, king, knight, 5. Observe something fascinating. Once again, and this is a motif that maybe if we practice this and play this enough with our friends or online or whatever, we can get our psychology up to where we don't immediately respond by retaking that dastardly knight for taking our queen. I mean, you want to kill that stupid horse, don't you? You took my queen, you will pay. However, there's more power. You're down the queen, just like we saw in the previous game. You're down the queen. There appears to be more power bringing out all of your minor pieces and coordinating them in an attack, rather than being petty and lopping off that insolent knight's head, right? So let's see how this affects it. And of course, white is going to try to bring his queen in. That's his advantage. However, look at the hole, look at the outpost. This is beautiful. Now, it's not permanent, but there could be just enough to make some serious damage here. Finally, he gets his knight out. And now, here we go. The famous Alekan block. Boink. Plop it right in front of that F-pawn. That way, the F-pawn can't start coming up and defending itself, defending the king, saving the pieces that are threatened and in danger. That pawn can't move. And you say, yeah, but isn't that just giving the knight away? At a cost, it is. The G pawn taking that knight disrupts and opens the white king. And because black has played heads up chess, he did not worry about wasting a tempo retaking this. He has all, and the pawn, all pieces in full attack mode, and the rook. So black has much more power in the attack, even though he's down the queen, because he didn't worry about getting retribution, get all the pieces into the attack. This is a fantastic illustration. That can't be overemphasized. Let's see what it does. Well, the pawn does take the knight because the king's in check. And the bishop takes the pawn, cutting off the king entirely. And the pawn takes the pawn, which opens up the rook to threaten the bishop. And now the final entree, which is simply marvelous. Marvelous, darling. Rook, 8. Did I take the wrong bishop? Did I take the wrong? That pawn was supposed to take. Zooks, dude. I blew this game. I apologize. I took a couple of moves ago. I took the knight with. This didn't explain it as good. That's the problem with the old nomenclature. You don't know which pawn took. It was this pawn that took because now the rook comes to here to go checkmate. It's a classic bishop rook checkmate. Even though they didn't have the queen. So there's the wonderful, wonderful idea again of even though the attack, even though that magnificent fork with a knight on that weak F7 or the weak f2 happens, and the bishop happens to be there defending the point, and you do win the queen, does not mean you can relax, because you still got to play the game. If your opponent has the heads up to say, okay, you got my queen, and no, I don't care about the piece that took my queen. I'm going to run all my pieces out towards your king immediately. You can still take the game. That's really important and a cool point. It really is. That's cool to know. Fun stuff. Oh, hey, Juicer. They are, John. I absolutely agree. Knights are so doggone tricky. Oh, sure, Jason Dean. Welcome, by the way. Thank you for the live. I miss watching your chested videos. Okay, good. Well, I will be doing a live also, possibly later tonight. I'm not quite sure yet. Maybe not. If I don't, I will do another live Sunday morning and Monday morning, because I have a 3-day weekend and my Monday is paid for. So I'm going to get paid to play chess. Woohoo! So anyway, yeah, thank you. Let's do another one since Juicer just got back. I mean, yeah, he can watch the video, but it's funner to do this live because he's got so many good insights. And I don't mean to be overpraising him above any of the rest of us, but I happen to know him pretty good through the Lee Chess BYP Club, and he's almost as good at chess as we are. Yes, Chooser, that was a joke. What a smart aleck, BYP. Come on, you expect it from me. You've known me for years now. That's the way I am. I like to have fun, be a clown, and yet learn something really cool and important in chess. Hopefully I can learn something important in chess. Okay, let's do another one of these. See, there's a lot to this Italian game in there. There really is. It is not by any means a worthless waste of time opening to learn about. And I know at this point in time, really most of us need to, and I've been told this, and I am doing this, most of us need to be focusing on tactics, which I am doing, and not worry so much about so much emphasis on the openings with all of their various nuances, because that will come in time, but it's much more important. Actually, what I ought to do, if I've got the time, let me see what I can do for Monday morning's live. I will try to put together some information on endgame stuff. The endgame is actually more important to study than the openings. It's just that this stuff is so much fun, right? We can't help it, right? So, oh yeah, sure, yeah. I never overpraise you, Juicer. The man, username, even the name, username. I mean, you know this guy knows chess. Okay, that's enough. That's it. That's it. Nope, stick around. We're going to the game. So here's another Italian, and this one's a quick one. That several of you said, "Hey, I like your miniatures." Here we go. Here is a really cool miniature in the Gioco Piano. Typical, standard, wide open, mainstream opening. We know it. We love it. We recognize it. Here we go. Again, the pawn, queen 3. King, knight, king 2. Okay, heads up. Just recognize the knight's actual natural square is up on the third row, right? So something could develop, something could happen if you see him with no reason develop it differently like this. So let's keep our eyes peeled, and immediately, and you say, yeah, that goes against opening principles, though. You're moving a piece twice, etc. I'm all cognizant of all of that, and it is valid. However, watch this. This is so cool. And then he castles. No, black is asleep at the wheel. You can't castle because you're in deep caca. So fast. Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed? Observe what's happening here. You did open with the right pawn. Yeah, well, so did black. Good. Duh. That's not a question. What you did wrong was, if he had developed his knight naturally, he wouldn't be in this position. Because putting the knight on its natural square covers the h5 against just this type of a diagonal attack. But instead, he was trying to get fancy or something. I don't know. Maybe he just didn't understand the best way to put the knight. He put the knight here instead. And I get it. It does support the knight. But is that guy attacked? No. Is he being threatened by a pawn? No. Man, he's got a gauntlet and a half to go through just to get to where he can attack the knight, if he ever does that. So what's the point of trying to reinforce the knight? Well, I mean, there are some variations, and this is something to keep in mind. This is why we love to study the openings. There are some variations where the knight will either be able to get to here or to here, or to here or to here, where you want to follow up with his twin brother, and they just kind of do a tandem dance and support each other. There really are good and valid and powerful variations, and that's actually a decent, powerful way to attack. So I'm not mocking the opening here. I'm saying keep your eye peeled if something like this happens, because there could be tactics. Now, again, black this time has castled a little bit early before white has fully committed where his pieces are going to go. I mean, look at his development. His bishop's home, watching TV. His knight's home, playing video games. His rook's home, sleeping early at night. None of these guys are out here. So how does black know it's safe to castle on that side instead of maybe over here? He doesn't. Once he committed, then white saw an opportunity to say, hey, guess what? I got your number, pal, and I'm calling and dinging on your doorbell. So, of course, you say that's not a big deal because he's got a way to defend. Is that right? Only at the expense of weakening his position can he defend, because look at this. Knight takes the pawn. Interesting. Queen, king, 1. What is going on? You see what black did? You're going, wait, take the knight. But if he does, remember, we're dealing with the Italian. With the Italian, the tactics just flow around that weak pawn or square. If he had taken it, then the rook is pinned. And apparently he didn't want that. So he did not retake. Instead, he moved the queen to king 1, which in turn pins the knight to the queen. So remember, the pin to the king is an absolute pin. But the pin to a queen is not. Check. Tactics. Oh, how much fun is this? So you gotta go to here, king, rook 2. Once again, knight, bishop 7, discovered. Check. King back to knight 1, and voila, mate. God, you can't help it. You kind of get your juices flowing, doesn't it? When you see stuff like this, you kind of go, dang, this is what keeps us coming back to these kind of games. Quick, short, sweet. effective. And you know what else this shows you, really? When the knight didn't come out to here and he came to here, that could be a positional mistake. As we grow and mature and kind of add more knowledge in our heads, and we begin to understand that position is at least, and I mean at least, as important as material. And so if the position, once you play enough and you get enough experience, uh, as the position doesn't quite look right, that makes you want to take a look at stuff like this. And I agree, this is traps. This is tricky. This is traps. This is tactics and all. And as far as classical chess understanding and knowledge, uh, oh wow, I left that former comment up all this time. I apologize. I hope that hasn't been in the way of the chessboard. I apologize if it was. So if the position looks different, double check. And this wasn't classic chess, but what an opportunity to immediately. And did you notice the forcing move? The moment the queen got here, black said, "Oh, I've got to respond." Right? The moment the knight took the pawn, black said, "I've got to respond," because he was threatening the queen. You can't just ignore the queen. Not in this position with the queen here. And the follow-up with that dark squared bishop, because he's opened up the diagonal, right? So the reaction, and then, of course, the re-manipulating to where you can get the queen in there for the checkmate. Because he played forcing moves, it was okay that he wasn't so fully developed. He was developed on the right squares at the right time. He was one step ahead of the shoe shine because of this different style of opening. This could not have happened, would not have happened, if he had come to here. We would have had something similar to what we've seen for the last 6 games, right? So that's a significant difference with just one different little move. So fun stuff to know. And again, you get this from experience, from just playing many, many games, losing many games, just like this, in the Italian in order to learn how to manipulate it. That takes years, and that's why we keep coming back to it, and we're having fun, because it's okay. There's nothing better than getting together amongst and with friends, having a barbecue preferably, and playing some chess, having some good laughs, laughing at the backyard professor because he makes stupid moves in some games and loses his games because of it, and yet being in awe of someone who plays a really good game, and you go, wow, I want to play just like them. That's what I do. And it's a lot of fun. It's a process. It's a slow, you climb up 3 or 4 steps and bam, you drop down 2. And you climb up 3 or 4 steps and bam, you drop down 1. And then you climb 1 and bam, drop down 2. It's all a process. But you slowly elevate and become better. Hey, Chancellor Galiza, good to see you. Okay, you want one more? You want one more? We could do one more. Let's see. Oh, that was the last Yoko Piano. That would actually be a good place to stop, especially if I'm going to do another one tonight or early tomorrow morning. Same time, basically. Sunday at I can go 10 o'clock. I usually sleep in Sundays because Saturdays I'm studying chess. Saturday evenings, I've got to keep studying my tactics. So anyway, let's I'm sorry, Chancellor, doggone it. I wish I wasn't doing this to you. I don't mean to say goodbye. Just the moment you say hello, I am going to do another live. I'm debating. I'll put up a schedule. I'll put up a notification if I decide to do one late tonight 10 to midnight or something like that. I'll do it this afternoon, a couple hours early. That way you can see. Otherwise, I will be doing another live tomorrow morning. I'm going to go at 10 o'clock in the morning because I like to sleep in. And then I'm going to do another live on Monday morning, 9 or 10 o'clock. I'll put it up on a schedule because I've got President's Day off and I'm going to do 3 lives in a row. I think that's the most lives I've ever done in a row and give you some good chess. Oh, good. Okay, good. So, all right, I will call it good at this point. Thank you all for all your support, and your love, and your encouragement, and your criticisms, and your delight in the chat, and fun to watch some good chess. This works out okay, doesn't it? I think. I know the majority of my audience said, "Now, I mean, you're kind of stuck. You are known because of this board." And so I do try to mix it up a little bit. I do try to do some electronic chess games, also analysis with the electronic stuff, with the computer stuff, because that is truly helpful for me presenting some stuff as well as for a lot of people. But I'm not going to quit doing this either because this is fun. It's interesting. It takes a little more time, and perhaps that's why it's more helpful. There's been several who said it's easier to see. That's always nice too. We want to be able to see it easy. Otherwise, what's the point? Right? I mean, man, if you can't see it, whatever. Yeah. Metal yellow, first red. Metal yellow, first red. Metal yellow, first red for the backyard professor. I don't know what you mean. Oh, yeah, metal. Yeah, it was first red. Yeah, those pieces are red. They came as black and red pieces. And what I did is I spray painted one side of them because there were so many colorblind people who could not see the red. And so I was hoping to help you out by changing the color of the pieces. That actually helps make it look more like the standard board anyway. I mean, you have white and black. I chose an off-white, kind of a creamy, yeah, like you said, metal yellow. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. I actually sprayed these a bright white, and they literally disappeared on the white squares. I said, oh no, what a disaster. So I had to spend another 2 days respraying them 5 or 6 times and letting the paint dry before I could reuse. Yeah, that was quite the adventure. All right, you guys, thank you so much. I appreciate everything. Keep your eye on your notification buttons. If you hit the like button, please, that helps me with the algorithm. But go ahead and hit subscribe and hit that little bell. It looks like a Liberty Bell up in the top upper right. That's the notification button. When I think it works if I schedule a live or schedule a video, as far as that goes. And it also works when I do when I upload videos. It'll ding at you and it'll let you know, hey, the BYP is still over there motor mouthing about something or other. You might want to go watch him. So go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. And I will try to put up this earlier this afternoon for tonight. If I can do it tonight, I'll see how my day goes. If I don't put up a notification, I probably won't do it, but I am going to do it in the morning. And if I do it late tonight, I will do it again tomorrow morning anyway, so that's an extra bonus. And then I'll do one Monday too. Whew, a lot of live chess. Woohoo! Why not? Hey, it's kind of fun to interact with all you guys. So I love it. So, all right, you guys, I will catch up to you just as soon as possible. Have a great day for the rest of the day. Absolutely. Thank you, Nicholas. Good to see all of you. Appreciate it. I shall be back.